Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, all the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Willen, and I am your host this evening for Inside Scoop. We have a phenomenal show in store for you this evening. We have two guests that have one thing in common: the intersection of law and the African American community. Our first guest is Kisha Brown. She is the CEO and founder of the Justis Connection. The Justis Connection is the only referral service that is dedicated to promoting African American lawyers. Kisha, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for having me. I'm excited to talk with you this evening.
Thank you so much for coming. So let's just get into it. The Justis Connection. Well, actually, before we get into everything the Justis Connection has to offer, how did you get to this place? Like, tell us all about your background. But I specifically want to focus on your work in Maryland in the Attorney General's office and the Civil Rights Division. Like, how did you get to this place?
Yeah, I can start from the minute, I became a lawyer. I started the training to become a lawyer. And many lawyers can relate where, you have someone who says, hey, do you know somebody who does family law? Or do you know someone who does bankruptcy? Or do you know someone who does criminal law? I need help with this. My cousin needs that. And it could be a church. It could be at the grocery store. It could be your family member, friends. And, we're called on in so many different ways to be a resource. And so instinctively, I'm looking on my phone, I'm emailing, I'm calling folks, trying to make that connection, right? And no matter what position I had or what role I had, there was always this need to really tap into my own personal network to help those in my community. And so it became this natural evolution, right? Going from just doing it casually because I wanted to help people, but to really committing my time full time to building this network so that we can have broader reach and broader impact.
So your work in the Maryland Attorney General's office and the work that you did in the Civil Rights office, can you discuss how that led you to create the Justis Connection?
Yeah, so when I graduated law school, I actually started at the Legal Aid Bureau. And so many folks start at the Legal Aid Bureau. It's a wonderful experience to be able to help those who are in need, right? You hit the ground running. I was doing everything from research to taking complaints, going to court. I went to the second highest court in the state of Maryland within 2 years of practicing there and won. And so from there, I began to see the granular nature of how the law affects the everyday person. Right. And then also in that capacity, I was representing non-custodial parents. And so from there, I then went to do legislative affairs for a business advocacy organization. And then, as you mentioned, the Attorney General's office, where I headed the Department of Legislative Affairs and then later took over the Civil Rights Department as well. And in those areas, oftentimes we think about the law in the courtroom, but the law begins really in the creation of the law in statute, right? By Congress, we think about, by our state legislature, by our city council. All of those have that first touch in creating what the law is and how it actually impacts real people. And so in those capacities, I really had an opportunity to learn about the creation of the law. But then again, I'm working for the government and you see where people are in need. They don't understand the law. They don't know where to go. There's no general resource oftentimes that says, hey, I'm a lawyer and I'm 2 blocks from you, right? Or I'm down the street from your daycare, or I'm 5 miles from your job. People don't know necessarily where to go or where to look. And so there's this huge gap that we in the legal industry, quite frankly, have allowed to be exacerbated, where lawyers are a dime a dozen in some places, and then in other places, it's very hard pressed to be able to connect with one. And I wanted to see the playing field even, especially for Black people.
Absolutely. You have an interesting quote on your website. You say that most people do not know a lawyer and are intimidated by the law. In this country, the Black experience in particular has been wrought with oppression and injustice. So seeing someone who looks like them explain the law, answer questions, and stand as a source has been tremendous for the people we serve. So to piggyback what you just said as far as the creation of the law, because there's been this gap initially with the creation of the law with people who look like us in mind, talk about how important it's been or the impact the Justice Connection has had, will have when it comes to people specifically looking for representation, legal representation that mimics their experience.
Yeah, it really is so impactful, Deborah, across the board. So I know later on you're going to hear from an amazing Justice Connection member, Portia Wood, who is a leader in estate planning, thinking about developing wealth as a Black family, as a Black community, right? And she's a leader in that field. And so you've got estate planning, but you also have criminal law, you have business law. Oftentimes we don't think about even employment law. Right. So here it is. I'm representing the natural girls with the curly hair.
Yes.
But if I maybe need to get an attorney, right, because I need to talk about being discriminated against on the job. Maybe I'm suffering from a hostile work environment, right? And people are making comments about my hair and different nuances. They're not necessarily calling me certain expletives, right? Or epithets that we feel like, oh, if they say that, then they got to be racist, right? There are these microaggressions that we all deal with. And if I have to convince my lawyer that my actual experiences are legitimate, right? They are real, they happened. How well can that person truly understand and represent me? Because there are nuances in our experience as Black people in this country, but they're interestingly enough, I don't know if that's the right word, but similar across the board, right? It's why, Deborah, when Thanksgiving comes out or Christmas comes out and you see the memes from Black Twitter or wherever that's talking about different aspects of the Black experience, and we can all laugh in, and you see something get, 50,000 likes and be forwarded 100 times, and you say, how does everybody have the same experience, a similar experience? And so having a lawyer who is culturally competent to guide you through the legal system is something that, is immeasurable, because you're paying for someone to take their legal analytical skills and apply it to the law, examining your unique experience, your unique circumstance. And that's not just something that you can get from getting an A in a particular course, right? That also comes from taking your learned experience that brings an extra level of value.
Absolutely. You said something key. Recently, I was reading in the news, or I saw online, that the Republican Senate shot down the Crown Act, essentially, which would make discrimination against someone based upon a hairstyle, essentially, which really affects African American women. They struck that down. So you're absolutely right. If you have to convince your attorney why not being able to wear your natural hair, not being able to wear twists, not being able to wear cornrows, not being able to wear Bantu knots, if you have to explain that to your attorney, it's essentially secondary wounding, which is why Justice Connection is so important. And then even from a numbers perspective, the fact that there are about 1.3 million attorneys in the US, which is a little bit larger than the size of Fairfax County, but only 4.5% of that number represents African American lawyers, which is about 59,000 people, which is maybe half the size of the city of Alexandria to service the entire country. When you look at things from that perspective, and even the fact that, so you have lawyers that are 4.5% of, African Americans that are 4.5% of attorneys. But then when it comes to those who are incarcerated, we represent like 38, 39%. It's such a, the disparaging numbers are apparent. So can you talk about your work to kind of even the playing field in that space?
Oh, goodness, right? I'll tell you, sometimes the road seems rough, right? From the individual perspective, right? If you're going through something, your own struggles are a lot, right? And then when you compound that with the communal struggles of Black people, right? You mentioned the numbers of Black people who are incarcerated, right? And how we're disproportionately incarcerated from our percentage of the population. It can seem unsurmountable, right? How do all these Black lawyers help everybody? Part of the dilemma, if you will, even is one, having legal information, knowing that your problem can have a legal resolution. And oftentimes people don't even take that first step to look into a lawyer or to even hire a lawyer because they're not even sure whether their issue has a legal resolution. Can the law make me whole, right? And so a big part of what we do even is educating folks and empowering them in the law. And a big aspect of that is being able to show them that not only are we telling you X, Y, and Z about family law and about business law, but we're going to show you. We're going to show you the Black men and women who have been trained in the law, who practice every day, and have built up first-class experience to be able to help you navigate one of the biggest challenges of your life, right? Whether it is developing a will to decide what happens with your legacy, whether it's trying to figure out how to navigate the biggest contract of your business to date, right? Whether it's looking at how do I make sure that I'm protected in this prenuptial agreement, or making sure that I have the proper custody over my children, right? All of these issues require someone not to just say, girl, you better try. I don't know, this is what happened to such and such, so you might want to try that too. This is not the time, right? And not to say that you don't call on your own kitchen cabinet to help you through your struggles, because we're still going to do that. But I want in your kitchen cabinet for you to have a lawyer at that table, right? And so you don't have to worry about, hey, where do I go? How do I know? You can just come to one spot, right? And we can take care of that for you. We make sure that the lawyers in our network are, one, properly barred in the jurisdiction that they say that they're licensed in. So that's one level that you don't have to go and do and look that up, because it's very challenging if you're just a lay person going on the internet trying to figure out, if this person actually is licensed in the state that they say they are. And then we also make sure that our lawyers don't have any current or pending grievances against them, right? That's something that can take, quite frankly, months, even years to process. And it's something that we would want our people who are coming to the network to know about. So we shy away from lawyers who are undergoing those types of grievance processes, so that people in the network know when they come, right, they're getting clearance on the type of at least first-rate lawyers from that perspective.
Thank you. Kisha, we'll be right back with more from Justis Connection.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate, and that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach, but you turn the other
Ma'am,
cheek.
you forgot your purse.
Oh, you don't know how worried I was. Thank you very much.
Hey.
Honesty. Pass it on.
Nice move, kid. Donut?
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
we're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back, everyone, to Inside Scoop. My name is Deborah Woolen, and I am your host this evening, featuring Kisha Brown, the CEO and founder of the Justis Connection, the only national referral service dedicated to promoting Black lawyers. Kisha, you gave us so much information as to why representation is important when it comes to law, when it comes to getting advice on the law, having someone explain the law to you. So now let's really get into the nuts and bolts of the Justis Connection. What I like about your organization is that it's not one-sided. Not only do you service the community, you also provide a service to attorneys. So let's unpack that a bit. But let's first look at the services that you offer attorneys and lawyers. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So, one of the things that makes a practice, as you can imagine, with any business, is having people walk in your door, right? Being able to service the community. And I will just say, Deborah, there isn't a Black attorney that I haven't met that hasn't told me that when they went to law school, they wanted to be of service to their community, right? They wanted to make a difference. They wanted to be a resource. And so this is about being a resource to them, right? So that they can be stronger, they can have a broader reach. And so at Justis Connection, we connect them, right, with members of the community, and not just sort of your everyday folks, which is super important, but also making sure that elected officials know who Justis Connection is, right, and who the lawyers in the network are. Being able to connect them with media like yourself, right, being able to broaden their reach, which is super impactful, and we're super grateful for your support of the network. And so we send them new clients, right? So we have this whole, you go to the website and people are able to fill out a lawyer inquiry form for free, right? We're not here to take money from the public. We want to make sure that we are just a bridge to Black lawyers. So we provide that bridge for Black lawyers, and then we also provide them business development support. So that's booking them for speaking opportunities, increasing their digital footprint, right? So being able to be found when you're Googling someone. Let me give you this example. I spend tons of money at Target, tons of money, y'all. I don't plan it. I never plan it. It just happens, right? Target just happens. And so, I will pass by Walgreens. I'll pass by CVS. Everybody got their favorites. Some people, my grandmother loves Walgreens. She's always like, anybody going to Walgreens? I need to get some, right? Everybody got their store. And you connect with the store, not necessarily just because they're so good to you, right? And they've got all the best stuff, because everybody got the same stuff. It's your connection. How had they outreach to you, right? For me, I love Target's little jingles. I mean, every commercial, I'm like, oh, that must be catchy. That must be Target, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got the red Target, and all of those things that constantly are reminding you about Target being the place to go to, your trusted source for fun, easy. They got everything, new brands. They support your community. They're investing this, they're promoting that, and it constantly reinforces, this is where I want to shop. Now, I might not be making that conscious choice every time I walk into Target, but please believe that's an aspect of what they're building upon, right? They don't just invest all of this money in marketing. And so we do that on behalf of the lawyers in the network, right? We make sure that we're promoting Justis Connection, so that when somebody's looking for a lawyer, they don't have to remember 10 names, right? Or 10 different business cards, just one name, right? And then when someone is a member of Justis Connection, they're able to have their own personalized website under Justis Connection. So it's justisconnection.com/Wood Legal Group, right? And then we're also able to promote them through search engine visibility by publishing on our blog. They're able to publish articles on our blog. We do workshops for them that promote around business development, so how to build a profitable network, how to publishing as public relations, blogging for business, the art of the legal pitch, teaching how do you actually, market and sell yourself. Because the reality is that running a law firm, running a law practice is a business, right? They are here as a service, but they also need to be paid so that they can have a viable life. Yes. They can live their lifestyle as well. And that needs to be done by having a profitable business. And you got to be taught that. And I'll tell you, in law school, they don't teach us that. They teach us how to analyze. They teach us how to write. They teach us how to interpret the law. They teach us how to do all of these things that are necessary to be successful for our clients, but they don't necessarily tell us the fundamentals of business. And so that's a support network that Justice Connection provides, again, for the lawyers in the network.
Absolutely. One thing that I want to point out when you mentioned the media, recently the Justice Connection was featured on NBCnews.com.
Yes, we're super excited, yes. Right? It was an amazing article written about us. It was picked up later by Black Enterprise. It was also picked up by Because of Them, We Can. So a number of different social media influencers will be on the radio in Philly and DC on Thursday. And then we've got a news segment coming in the new year. So we're so excited by all of the support that we're getting. Inside Scoop picking us up this week. And so we're on a roll, right? We're here to grow this powerful, powerful network, Deborah, of Black attorneys who handle everything from business law, criminal law, employment law, family law, estate planning, personal injury, the gamut, everything you can imagine you need a lawyer for, Black lawyers do it, right? If you are the mayor of a small town and you need a lawyer, right? If you are the partner of a major law firm, you hire outside legal counsel. There are all these ways that we can tap into the genius that exists within the Black legal community, and Justice Connection is here to foster that.
Yes, and so all of these opportunities online, with social media, and with major news outlets, it's not only about exposure for Justice Connection, but it's also exposure for lawyers and attorneys that partner with you. Some people give, for example, attorney Ben Crump, some people give him a hard time because they say, well, he's in front of the camera all the time, where there's just not that much representation. If you go back to the numbers, only about 20 to 25,000 Black men in this country are attorneys. So the more we have, the more visibility we have, the more networking opportunities we have. For example, with the Justice Connection, that's more of an opportunity that our community has for protection, for understanding of the law.
That's right. And in 2023, we have a robust agenda. So we're having monthly Ask Me Anythings where we will be featuring attorneys who are experts in that field, if you will, who have the experience, whether, let's say, for example, Portia, right? And she's a guru when it comes to estate planning. Let me tell you, Portia's just one. She's magnificent, don't get me wrong. But there are so many around the country because Portia's unique. She's barred in multiple states, which means she can help businesses and clients in different states. Many attorneys are barred in one state, some are barred in multiple states, but it's important for us to be able to recognize that we have the need all over the country. And quite frankly, Deborah, all over the world. We've already received inquiries from England, as well as the Caribbean, and some folks in the West Coast of Africa to become members of the Justice Connection Network, because there are Black people everywhere. There are people everywhere who want to hire Black lawyers. And so this is an important way for people to be able to tap into the Black legal community.
Yes. Okay. So we've talked about the B2B component, what Justice Connection can do for attorneys. Now let's talk about what Justice Connection can do for clients.
Yeah. Well, not me even, Justice Connection is only as good as the lawyers in our network, right? We're building an infrastructure to support them, to amplify them. But the real juice, our real secret sauce, is the Black lawyer. It's the genius that lives within the Black lawyer. And let me tell you, one of the best parts of my job is meeting amazing Black men and women who have devoted their lives to the legal profession and to serving their community and being a resource. And so we intend to bring that to the people, right? Even more in the new year. So we, encourage folks to follow us on Instagram and Facebook especially, and LinkedIn, and our tag is right there, our whole name. And you can get up to date to subscribe to follow us. Every month we send out a newsletter. We don't spam. I don't got time for all of that. So every month we send out a newsletter chock full of information, but also featuring Black lawyers. And so often I'll get responses from our newsletter from people who are just like, wow, this is so amazing to see the representation, right? So when we put posts out on Instagram, our most popular posts are the lawyers, right? People literally getting to see us. And there's nothing wrong with, Black lawyers have their own websites, they have their own social media, but there's something about having a gathering place, if you will, for folks to be able to tap into that collective. And it doesn't take away from any particular lawyer in their individual capacity, right? There's power in the collective, and we're able to harness that power on behalf of our community. So in doing so, in the Ask Me Anythings I mentioned that we'll be doing monthly, we had an incredibly popular series last summer that we're bringing back this summer, 2023 summer, called Legends in the Law. And let me tell you, folks were up in there having church in the chat because the gems were so rich, right, that people were sharing that our speakers were dynamic, but they had such long roots in the fight for rights of our community and being a Black lawyer and understanding the struggles of the Black lawyer, that they were dropping gems on both sides, right? And so we've got a lot going on for the new year, including expanding, right? So right now we're currently in Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. And top of the year, we're in Atlanta. We already started bringing folks on in Georgia, so we're expanding to Atlanta Metro, Chicago Metro. Gotta represent the A. Gotta represent the A, right? Chi-Town, Central Florida, Orlando, the bottom. I said at first we were gonna do Central Florida, but then I was like, the bottom, Miami, was like, hey, hello, we're the South, right? Like, you gotta get us. And then, interestingly enough, we get a lot of inquiries from California. So I gotta pray on California, because that's a big state, y'all. Okay, and they're all the way over there on the other side. But we intend to be national. There's no reason why we can't be, and we won't be. But we will be rolling out in a way that really covers where we are as a community, so that we can meet everyone's legal needs.
Fantastic. Okay, Kisha, with 30 seconds left, again, let folks know how they can connect with the Justis Connection.
Yeah, so definitely email us. Well, let me say this. Go to our website, www.justisjustis. So what is just to you, right? JustisConnection.com. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Like us, comment, share. The algorithm is real, y'all, so I want to hear from you. You can always reach out to me directly. You can do that in our Contact Us.
And we'll be right back with Inside Scoop.
There. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy. What do you call a pig that knows karate? Pork chop. Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Can I tell you another one? So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it.
What's Beethoven's favorite fruit? Banana.
What is a boxer's favorite drink? Fruit punch.
Mom, I got it. What are you doing in there?
I got stuck.
Are you a dog?
I wouldn't do that. Have you seen the pliers? Where'd you find those?
It's not your birthday.
Sorry.
Bye, Grandpa.
Bye, Grandpa.
Take care of yourself.
What are you doing? What are you looking for?
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me again for Inside Scoop. Okay, so for the second half of this wonderful show, we have Portia Wood of Wood Legal Group. She is half of the African-American mother-daughter estate planning law firm, and their goal is to close the information gap that keeps families from leveraging and protecting assets to create generational wealth. Portia, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Deborah, for having me. I'm so excited to be here with both of you.
Thank you. So, okay, first, let's just get into the fact that you're half of a mother-daughter law firm. How does it even work? How did you get to this place?
Carefully, you know, we really do mesh well together. She's got the baby boomer generation. She's got her generation, and I've got mine, and we have the ability to bring those skills and experiences to the families because our concerns are different. So understanding what my mother's generation's concerns are for their estates and what they had to go through is important because we have someone who is culturally competent in that way. And then understanding what my generation and the generations after me are going through and what their concerns are allows us to really help a broad spectrum of people.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I thought you were, you're absolutely right. Okay, so you talk about generational wealth, and I think it's so important that you point out the fact that obviously you have two generations working within one law firm. But you say on your website that you focus on Black, Brown, and LGBTQ families. Why is that so important?
Well, we've been historically and systematically marginalized. This information has been kept from us. It's not unknown, it's not new, right? Even though the word generational wealth is popping up everywhere. But in certain communities, we've been actively kept from this information. It's something that was passed down at dinner tables and inside of families. And if you operated within a particular structure, you might learn about this. But outside of that, you didn't really know how to protect what you were working for. And so when we're looking at these communities specifically, it's because they are the ones that have been actively kept out. And we want to open those doors to make sure that everybody can protect what they're working for.
You said something key. You said that's absolutely right. Generational wealth is like this phrase, like this catchphrase lately. And not without reason. For example, for new entrepreneurs, Black women are making up the lion's share of new small business owners. So that's wealth accumulation, super important. But when it comes to protecting that wealth and making it available for future generations, that's easier said than done. And we have to have information on how to move forward in that vein. So can you talk about the services that you offer and the information that you offer to make sure that marginalized communities can do just that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we talk about is that it's not just about accumulation, which is where all of us are, right? We're trying to create assets. But really the baseline for everyone is protection. How do we make sure that our foundation to our financial houses are secure? And that's going to be your estate plan. It's going to be what houses your assets. So that's a will for some people, but for the majority of the community, it's probably going to be some form of a trust structure. It's your powers of attorney for property. What happens if you become incapacitated? Who is legally able to step up and help, pay your bills, take care of you without needing court interference? And also it's going to be your medical directives. Who gets to decide what happens to you medically if you can't decide for yourself? Many people don't have those basics in place. And those basics eat away at the wealth that we're building, because one illness, one death, one incident erodes a lifetime of work. And it means that the next generation is starting over from zero. Mm-hmm. There is a state of emergency in the Black community right now. 13%, there was a study done in 2017 that said that 13% of college-educated African Americans get $10,000 or more to the next generation. Only 13%. That means 87% of college-educated African Americans are not even getting $10,000 to the next generation. And what they found in that study was that it's not that we don't have wealth, right? There's so many things along the way that we are unprepared for that eat away at that wealth, that by the comes time to transferring it, it's just no longer there. And they took $10,000 as the barometer because they said $10,000 was enough to be transformational in someone's life. It was enough to get someone out of a paycheck to paycheck cycle, to get someone out of poverty, to make an investment that could have a meaningful return. So $10,000 was considered to be wealth. And most people think, I don't have wealth because I don't have millions of dollars. And the reality is it's much smaller than that. To build wealth intergenerationally, you've got to start with the seed. You've got to till the soil. You've got to water it. And then it grows into a seedling and it keeps growing. You don't just start with the millions. You start right where you are.
Absolutely. When you talk about a loss of generational wealth, for me, it makes me think about Tulsa. It makes me think about Rosewood and that generational wealth that was lost due to a lack of police or judicial protection. Now we stand to lose generational wealth because we don't protect ourselves, because we're not arming ourselves with the information to protect and pass on that wealth. So you mentioned something, wills. Why isn't it as simple as, hey, I'm going to write down on a piece of paper what my wishes are should something happen to me? Why can't it be just as simple as that?
Because the law is never simple. That's why they have lawyers, right? The law is never simple. The reality is that a will still needs to be probated in almost every state in this country, which means a judge still has to certify that that will is valid and confirm the beneficiaries, confirm the assets. It puts the court in control, which means they're going to take their piece of the pie. They're going to get paid on the court fees. An attorney is going to be paid for putting it through the process. And your beneficiaries, the kids that you think are going to get all of this in the end up with whatever is left. Not the bulk, but whatever is left after everybody else has had their piece of it. That's why when I say a trust is likely what most people need, because a trust is private. It does not require a judge to intervene. You've already handled those deals that your estate beforehand. So while you are alive, you made your plan. And you said, if I become incapacitated, or when I pass away, because it is coming for all of us, right? When I pass away, here's who I want to step up to make sure my assets get to these people. And here's how I want those assets to get to these people. And here's what I want them to do with it. And you can bypass the court process entirely. And let me just point out, the court process is estimated, the probate court process is estimated to cost American families $2 billion annually in this country. And when we think about this growing wealth gap between the haves and the have-nots, and then you look at this ever-growing racial wealth gap in this country, we cannot afford to lose $2 billion annually from our families just from a lack of planning. And it really is a lack of education, because once people understand what the pieces are that are going to protect their individual family circumstances, they're like, of course I want that. Because that alternative that is a guarantee if I do nothing is horrific. And I didn't work every day to throw all of these assets away.
So you said something interesting. You said typically if something were to happen to us, we want to make sure that we have control over who says what my children can have. But what if you're a single person? Is it just as important for a single person with no children to begin planning their estate now?
100%. It's not a matter of children, right? People often think about estate planning with children. But if you're single and you are that rich auntie out here in the streets, which so many people are nowadays, you still have to decide where it goes, because the default is that the court then decides for you. Do you get up and go to work every single day for the court to then make a decision about what happens with what you've created? Or do you want the people that you love, or the institutions that you support, or the organizations that you think are doing great work in your community to benefit from everything that you've done? What do you want your legacy to be? And when I talk about the foundational elements, it really is everybody over the age of 18 in this country. Once you are a legal adult, you need some version of an estate plan. We just don't all need the same estate plan. Our estate plans are going to depend on really 3 different things, right? One is going to be your family structure, whether you're married, single, you've got kids, no kids, blended families, incarcerated individuals, people with special needs. then you're going to need a different type of plan depending on your family. The second one is going to be your asset levels. Do you own your home? Do you own 15 homes? Do you have a business? Do you have multiple businesses? Do you work a 9 to 5 and you've got a 401k, a life insurance? What do you own, right? Because that's going to determine what your estate plan looks like. And then the third piece is really, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? What do you want your legacy to be? Most people don't realize that they can set up a plan that can run for generations. It only takes one person's concerted effort to change the legacy for their bloodline or for the people that they care about. If you decide to make a plan today, you can impact people 6 and 7 generations down the road. And I am a personal beneficiary of that and can speak to that the small tweaks, the little changes can have everlasting impacts.
So just to play devil's advocate, if the court is a tool of the public, what's so bad, with 2 minutes left, what's so bad about having the court intervene if someone were to pass away? What's so bad, or what's at risk if we have the court say what happens to our property once someone passes away?
Sure, everything you've worked for is at risk. So in a state like California, there are fees that are set by statute. So we look at the gross value of your estate, everything you own, regardless of how much debt there is. Let's say you own a home, and I'm going to use easy numbers for me because I'm not a math major, right? Let's say you have $1 million estate and you have a mortgage that's $900,000. You really only have $100,000 in equity. But that $1 million estate is going to cost you about $46,000 by statute in attorney's fees and personal representative fees. That's not the court fees, that's not probate referee fees, that's not anybody fighting, that is not filing fees, that is just the attorney and the personal representative, and almost half of the equity that's in that house is already gone. Add in anything else, and you may be forced to sell that home to pay the other liabilities, and your family ends up with nothing. Or that one home could be the catalyst for building intergenerational wealth in your family. Because let's say that passes directly to your beneficiaries through a trust structure. Let's say you restricted sale on that, and you say you can leverage it, you can take out some of that $100,000. Well, now your beneficiaries can tap into that equity to buy other property. That's wealth building, right? They could rent that property and get an income from that rent. That provides financial security for them to go out and try other things. So it's a huge difference between we lost everything that could have generated wealth and we protected it to build upon.
Portia, we will be right back to hear more about building generational wealth. Join us and come right back.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul.
Estimated time, 47 hours.
They will beg.
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
They will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out.
Now you're talking.
Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second.
Are you orange?
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
report back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Thanks so much, everyone, for coming back and joining us on Inside Scoop. Portia, I want you to know that you have the studio buzzing right now about this conversation. Someone mentioned a really good point, and they said when you have a household that has multiple generations living inside, this type of conversation is super important to make sure that the asset, if it's just that home, is super important to protect, to make sure the home or the family isn't displaced in the event the primary caretaker passes away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, estate planning is so much more than just what happens after I die. How do people get my stuff? I mean, we really do need to reframe this conversation. It's about how do you want to live? How do you want to live your life with dignity, particularly when you are not able to make decisions for yourself for any reason? And how do you want the people you leave behind, whoever they may be supported, to be protected, to be loved? And not just your children or your nieces, nephews, or your friends, or whomever you want to leave it to, but 3 generations from now. We talk about this state of emergency in the Black community. I mean, we all know by 2053, there was an estimated that by 2053, the median net worth for African-American families was set to hit 0. And that was before this COVID-19 pandemic, which we've just come through, right? Still dealing with, where 1 in 289 African-Americans died. This road to 0 wealth has been extremely accelerated. We're at probably 10 to 15 years to get people effectively covered by comprehensive estate planning before we will lose. And we will hit that tipping point where you cannot buy back what you've just lost. There is no substitute to receiving an inheritance of any size. There is no substitute for a paid off house or a house with a low mortgage, especially when you see people struggling in this economy to be able to get access to mortgage products. There is no substitute for being able to leverage the work of someone else and to be able to stand on their shoulders, whatever it may be that they have to leave behind. And we right now are on the precipice of one of the largest wealth transfers in the history of this country. The baby boomers hold the majority of the wealth, and then in the next few years, they will all be over the age of 65. 65 being that magic number, right? The studies say that 63% of people over the age of 65 need some form of long-term care before they pass away, which can look like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of care. If they don't have a plan in place, how many American families today can support that? And if they don't have a plan in place, how many American families can pay the fees that come along with a court process, particularly a long court process? And what would be left once they've gone through it? That's the reality of so many people right now that they're facing, that unknown sort of hidden emergency that most people don't even know is in front of them. Yes. And it doesn't have to be that way. You know, we founded an organization called the Black Trust Fund Kids, which is really about normalizing intergenerational wealth in Black and Brown communities. And one of the programs that we do is a Juneteenth estate planning giveaway, where we try to protect the older members of our community who maybe are on fixed incomes, who can't afford to do comprehensive estate planning, but maybe they have a house, or maybe they have a couple of assets that could be the seed for their family's future. And so this Christmas, we actually launched a sweatshirt line to help support this initiative that we've been doing for the last few years, which is what I'm wearing right now, right? And so my sweatshirt says, Santa, bring me a duplex and checks.
I love it.
Because it's just trying to encourage this idea that we need to be looking at things. And going back to what Kisha said, it's about collective, right? We collectively as a community cannot afford for us to lose. And so how do we get community buy-in to help protect the most vulnerable among us that can really change the tide for Black wealth in this country? We cannot close the racial wealth gap, right? Just by taking away racist policies. That's like stabbing people over and over again and then taking out the knives and leaving them. We need to start performing surgery, and that starts at home, that starts with ourselves, that starts in our own families, particularly this holiday season when you're sitting around that table, have that hard conversation about what people want their legacy to be. Yes. And then to expand it outwards and really tie together and wrap our arms around our community and say, we are going to take this information that we have and protect everyone so that we don't end up in a generation from now with our kids and our grandkids or our nieces and our nephews or whomever we may love being in a position where they no longer can afford to buy into this society. They can't have a seat at the table because we didn't protect the gains that we made. It's right now, it's fight or flight. And I'm hoping that people will take this information and fight for our intergenerational wealth.
Yes. One thing I really appreciate about Wood Legal Group and how you use social media is that you have so many nuggets and gems of information. And one thing I want us to get into is the importance of guardianship election. You mentioned that due to the pandemic, there were, did you say over 100,000 children that were essentially orphaned?
Yep, so between April of 2020 and June of 2021, more than 146,000 children in this country were orphaned. We were actually fourth for the most orphaned children in the world. We were the only first world nation in the top 5, and 65% of those children were in minority communities. We are not prepared for what happens if something happens to us. And oftentimes that's because we're in accumulation phase, or we are working from this scarcity mindset of like, we have to survive. And so we haven't prepared. And our children, the ones who can't prepare, right, they are dependent on us, are the ones who are really suffering. How do you build generational wealth when a court is in charge of where you go, when a court appoints who manages your money, and when there's such a lack of financial literacy amongst our community that even if they pick someone that's trying hard, they may just not have the ability or the resources to truly protect that child or that wealth. And so we've got to make those elections for ourselves. So anybody who's got a child under the age of 18, you need to have guardianship elections. There are 2 types. One is going to be permanent guardianship, and this goes inside of your will. And side note, even if you have a trust, you also have a will, but it goes inside of your will. And the second one is temporary or emergency guardianship. This is one most people don't know about, but even if you go on vacation and leave your child behind with your mother, they don't have legal authority to have your child unless they have a signed and notarized document from the parents or a court order. And if anything were to happen, CPS can come and take your children away from your parents or your siblings or your friends. And so you've got to make sure that you have the proper documentation in place to truly protect those kids. So temporary or emergency guardianship, and then permanent guardianship for everybody who's got a child under the age of 18.
You raise such a good point. So oftentimes we say, okay, as I mentioned before, why can't I just take a piece of paper and write down what I want? What are some of the pitfalls that people succumb to when it comes to the DIY approach to estate planning or establishing guardianship over their children?
You just don't know what you don't know. Honestly, you know, I have learned a lot of things in my life, but I would never perform brain surgery on someone else. And I definitely would not perform brain surgery on myself. It's just, it's not a good idea. I don't know how the brain works. And watching a YouTube video or going online and letting someone give me a tutorial on it, if I don't ask the right questions, if I don't know to ask the right questions, I need someone who's culturally competent enough to ask me. I need someone who's going to see my family situation and offer advice and strategies and guidance based on my own goals, based on my family. There are no 2 estate plans that are the same. There just aren't, because our families are not the same. I'm a solo parent of a minor, right? Some people don't have kids at all. Some people are married. Some people are in blended families. Some people have whatever type of family structure they want. The reality is everybody's situation is unique, which means your plan needs to be reflective of your situation, your assets, your goals. And that's going to mean that it looks different. No templated estate plan or do-it-yourself estate plan that you can find online is going to be able to do that for you. And particularly in the Black and brown communities, we have to address the fact that the war on drugs was, in essence, a war on Black and brown communities, which means that so many people in the generation that are set to inherit right now from the baby boomers have had contact with the incarceral system. They may have restitution issues. They may have back child support issues. Their estate plan, anything that they might inherit, needs to be protected differently than somebody who does not have those same kinds of issues if you want to keep those assets. right? If you don't want the state to attach to those assets and force a sale, you need to leave them differently to that child in an asset protected trust or depending on what the need is. But you won't know to ask that question if you don't know that that could be a challenge or what that social impediment might look like. You won't know to ask the question if you have a child who's receiving SSI or disability, the fact that they can't inherit more than $2,000 or have more than $2,000 at any period in time without completely eroding their eligibility for those benefits. And then what have you done? Have you provided enough cash to pay for them for the rest of their lives? Or have you just unintentionally bankrupted them and put them in a situation where now they have to fend for themselves? These are real issues that families face. And if you don't know to ask those questions, how could you possibly do your own estate plan?
So many questions are running through my head right now. It's like, what are you again? Okay, with the 2 minutes that we have left, let's just say someone I'm looking at this on YouTube Live right now. Oh my gosh, Portia is offering so much information. Mom just passed away. She's got a property in New York and she's got a property in Florida. And me and my siblings, we live in 3 different states. Is it too late? What can we do now? We didn't prepare. Do we have to go to the courts? Is it too late to contact Wood Legal Group? What do we do?
Whew. That just breaks my heart right there. I know it's a scenario, but it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Yes, it is too late to avoid the court system. Once somebody has passed away, right? Once you need it, it's too late to get it. That's why you have to do it in advance. It's a plan, it's in advance. So a mother who passes away and has a home in New York and a home in Florida, you're gonna have 2 separate probates, one in New York and one in Florida. Reason being, probate is a function of state court, which means the New York court cannot transfer Florida property and vice versa. So you will have to have 2 separate court proceedings, 2 separate sets of attorneys, et cetera. And let's hope that those siblings aren't gonna start fighting with each other about what assets they think they should have. And, you know, I took care of mama better than you, whatever it might be. It is not too late, though, for them to then have a conversation with a culturally competent attorney like myself or others who do generational wealth work to look at what is a strategy for how you now preserve that asset through the probate process. What can we do to achieve the goal if that goal is intergenerational wealth, and really getting everybody on the same page? You know, one of the things that's unique to me is I have a dual LLM. So one of them is in alternative dispute resolution, and so family mediations is something we do all the time.
I'm going to stop you right there, Portia. Thank you for joining us.
Oh,